Welcome back, my friends. Every season it seems I get questions from people who are new on how to climb, and my suggestion is always know 3 or 4 builds really well, and then choose which one you're going to go for once you start seeing how it is. These are the 4 builds that I think everyone should really know and can help you climb.
And before we hop into the builds, let's throw the graphic up there. You know what I'm gonna say. Like, comment, subscribe, do the stuff that helps the YouTube algorithm, gets the video out there, helps the channel grow. You know, it's important. Now, let's get down to it. Now, this first build is one I kind of stumbled into a little bit, and I'm going to show that video at another time. But it's essentially creating a Star Guardian Talia build with a really strong front line. If you get something like Jeweled Lotus, or a Lux hero augment, or even some threat hero augments, and I'll show that in another video, you might want to edge into this build. And it's essentially creating a really strong front line made up of either threats, defenders, or Aegis, depending on how it goes, then creating Star Guardians with a really strong Talia. If you're not dealing with a threat, tank, hero augment, then I like to start with defenders early, as they're really good at holding the front line in the early part of the match. You want to get Lux up to 2 stars, obviously, and then use her as the item holder for the Talia items. However, don't be afraid to take her up to 3 stars. She's fairly decent and will hold up. You'll just have to find your Talia items later, which are going to focus around power and healing. As for augments, you're looking for anything that will enhance the team, Star Guardians, or make them tankier. In this case, we went with the Rel support one that will allow your team to gain armor and magic resist as they cast, which is going to be very good for a Star Guardian team. In a perfect world, you want to end up with items something like this: a mana producing item, some type of amplifier. Rabadon's Death Cap, Jeweled Gauntlet, didn't need it here because we had the augment, and then a Hextech Gunblade, so that you're healing your team as you're going along and casting. You can see that the front line will hold things together, and your back line, which will eventually bring in Talia, will really do the damage. There are 4 core Star Guardians for this. It is Lux, Talia, Echo, and Rel. Lux and Talia give you Spellslinger. Echo gives you 1 Aegis, so you can build Aegis off of Echo, and Rel gives you 1 Defender, so you can build Defender off of Rel. You can go to either 5 or 7 Star Guardians depending on the augments you get and the champions you pick up and what you're facing. It's going to be a game time decision, but the whole goal is create a really strong front line that will hold things up, and then allow Talia to just do her thing, which is clear entire boards with her attack. And it will take you pretty far a lot of the time. And now, let's move on to the next build. Like the first build, this next one is circumstantially forcible. If you happen to get the right champion or the right hero augment early, you probably want to go for it. And it's threats. Now, with this particular one, you could also go into the previous build, since it's impacting the entire team. In this case, I chose to stay with threats because of the items I had. I already had the makings of the Titan's Resolve, which is a key item for Bel'Veth. So if I had had more spellcaster friendly items, I might have gone into the previous build, but in this case, because I had a Titan's Resolve ready, I decided to push into threats. The difficult thing with threats is that you actually need a lot of patience, because you're not likely to get the rest of your team together until you're getting into 6 and 7. Your key champions are Bel'Veth and Aurelion Soul, so you want to pick up items that are going to help them, but also if you get loaded die or champion duplicators, get them as well, because they're going to be very useful when you need them. So key items for Bel'Veth are Titan's Resolve, Rapid Fire Cannon, because that allows her to keep distance. Then it will depend on your augments, whether you go for a damage amplifier or healing item. Key items for Aurelion Soul are going to be Jeweled Gauntlet, and then preferably a Spear of Sojin and another damage amplifier if you can get it. Now, fair warning with threats. Be prepared to lose early, especially as you're getting into 6 and 7, because you're not going to have your carries and other teams are. Your carries are more likely to come at the end of 7 or into 8, so you just want to create a strong team that can hold up early and then be willing to take these losses as you're waiting to roll down once you get into 7 and 8. The reason loaded die and champion duplicators are so key is once you get the champions you need, you want them up to 2 stars as quickly as possible, because they are going to be able to carry your team. Allow your augments to dictate your items. In this case, I got Celestial Blessing, so Belveth did not need the Bloodthirster, so I could go with the Giant Slayer so she could do more damage. I wasn't able to get a Spear of Sojin for Aurelion Soul, but I ended up putting on the Archangel Staff, the Hextech Gunblade, and the Jeweled Gauntlet, so Aurelion Soul was doing maximum damage.
Since you're going to be going to level 9 in Hyper Roll, you get your 8 threats and then we'll have an additional champion slot. For me, there's only really one choice, and that is Sejuani. Her stun is absolutely key. It will hold things in place and just multiply along with what Rammus and Vel'Koz are going to do. You can see right there, it slams them down, just helping to finish off the entire team. If you're patient, threats works really well, but you need a sign from the gods that it's going to work for you. It's forceable conditionally. Our next one, you can force anytime you want. This next build is infinitely forceable. I will have a video in about a week where I do my 5 games in a row where I force this build, and we'll come up with a force score and we'll go over it more then, but it's fairly simple. You just follow admin and heart. Whether you win or lose will somewhat depend on your augments, on what admin traits you ultimately get. There are good ones, there are bad ones, and when you get the good ones, you're probably going to be in first place, but when you get the bad ones, you still have a really good chance of getting in the top 4. For augments, have fun with it. You can go Jeweled Lotus and get the spellcasting crit, or you can go with a Portable Forge and get something like a Mana Zane. It's really going to come down to what the admin buffs are and getting all 6 hearts. Lulu will be your item holder for your Soraka items, which are a mana generating item, usually a blue buff, but if you get a Mana Zane, that's even more fun. The Hextech Gunblade is essential as it will help keep your team healed, and then you want some type of damage amplifier, either Rabadon's Death Cap or Jeweled Gauntlet. Let your augments decide exactly which items you want. It may even be possible to turn Lulu into the carry in this build. We'll explore that in a video as well. The one hitch is if you run into hero augments, you have to hope it's either an admin or a heart that they offer you. There are 6 heart champions and 4 admin champions and only 1 crossover, which is Soraka, so you're going to need every single slot in your 9-person team to make this work, but that is what makes it perfect for Hyperroll, since Hyperroll goes to the 9-person team. As soon as you find Soraka, make the swap from Lulu over to Soraka, giving the items that you held on Lulu to Soraka. They are going to be a big benefit. If you can keep your 2-star Lulu, that's great too, but it doesn't often work out that way, and you sometimes have to throw in a 1-star Lulu just to fill out the heart team. The difference maker in this build is going to be the admin buff. That will decide whether you're going to get first place or just in the top 4. I like to get an AP buff, but in this case I just had a mana buff, and then I could gain 30 permanent health at the start of each combat. That's not going to end up equaling that much by the end of the match. But even without the perfect admin buffs, you can see this team performs really well as it starts to come together. The arts are gaining additional ability power for the entire team each time they cast, so your team is getting stronger and stronger. You can use either Blitzcrank or Lee Sin as your main tank. It depends which one you get to 2 stars first. If you can get an early 2-star Lee Sin, use him. Otherwise, go for Blitzcrank. Finally, and this is really important, your final champion in this build is going to be Syndra. She is going to take players off your bench and fling them into combat. Make sure you have legendary champions on your bench that she can fling. Otherwise, it is a waste. With the right champions on your bench, you can turn an entire game into your favor because they will come in and help you out. use this build. It's a lot of fun and very easy to do. And now it's time to move on to our final build, and I think you all know what it is. Yeah, you guessed it. It's Animaniacs, because I've been talking about this build since day one, and it still works. You want to force it, the only thing that could get in your way is a hero augment, but you can usually find one that will fit, and part of the reason is that with Animaniacs, it doesn't end up going to 9. You only need 7 players to fill out the core team, the 5 Anima squad, and then the 3 pranksters, and there's crossover because Jinx is both Anima squad and prankster. I like to bring in Alistair because he will shore up the front line a little bit and bring in mascots, but then you have a complete wildcard champion that you can use, and so if you happen to get a hero augment that doesn't specifically fit with Animaniacs, you can bring that in and make it work just as well. I've been over it so many times I almost feel bad repeating it at this point. Key Jinx items: Rage Blade, Static Shiv, Spear of Sojin. Your ultimate carry is going to be Misfortune. You want something like Rage Blade, Spear of Sojin, and then a damage amplifier, whether that is a Jeweled Gauntlet or Rabadon's Death Cap or Giant Slayer. That's up to you when you get to that point. The key is going to be speed and mana. For augments, have fun with it. Anything that will help your team out. You can do healing augments, you can do frontline augments, you can do backline augments. Your goal is to get your pranksters involved as soon as possible, but they can be elusive because they are 3 and 4 cost after Jinx. It's looking for Zoe and Echo. In the next week or so, I'm going to be putting together a full force video on this to show whether it's forceable by playing 5 games, getting the average placement in forcing the build every time no matter what you get. But I can tell you from playing this build this season, from day one, it is infinitely forceable. You can use it just about every time, and it feels like you almost never miss the top 4. Hope you enjoyed this video, you find the builds helpful. I think they will really help you climb if you're not in Hyper already, and as always, have an absolutely awesome day.